Now, Hansa Duda was another one of the 11 GBC Guru princes, and he originally started out his biggest program in Germany, and he was running what seemed to be quite a successful program there. He bought a big mansion-type building called the Schloss Retterschaft, and they were distributing a lot of books, and Prabhupada was very happy with Hansa Duda's program in the early 70s. Eventually, however, the Schloss was raided by the German police. I believe that the German authorities just didn't like the Krishna religion. I don't think Hansa Duda was doing any outrageously criminal thing at the time, but they trumped up a bunch of charges that he was defrauding the public or something like that. I don't think that was really necessarily the case, but anyway, somehow or other, he got his property raided, and they froze the bank accounts and froze all of the cash. They confiscated the cash. They just left the devotees penniless, really. I had to go there. I had to fly to Germany with some cash to give devotees some money so they could at least buy some food. So it was quite a mess. But one of the things that happened was that the newspapers reported the raid by the police, and they said that several books were in Hansa Duda's place that were about Hitler and Joseph Goebbels and the different leaders around Hitler at the time. So it looked bad for Hansa Duda that he's a monk, a sadhu, supposedly, a sannyasi, and he's reading about a megalomaniac leader like Hitler. So what does this mean? It means Hansa Duda may have been thinking, if I can follow Hitler's footprints, I can become a big leader myself, a tyrannical leader of some type. So it was obvious from that he was motivated. Why is he studying the life of Hitler and the process that Hitler used to manipulate people's consciousness and put himself into a big, powerful seat and all that type of thing? Now, around the same time, Hansa Duda had his picture on the altars in Germany, and Kirtananda had his picture on the altar in America, and Prabhupada was very disturbed by that. He said, at least in the Gaudiya Math, they waited until their guru departed before they put their pictures on the altar, but my people are already putting their pictures there now. So if you add that together, we got Hitler on the one hand, and we've got let's put our pictures on the altar on the other hand. So it's very clear that Hansa Duda is motivated. He's very motivated. He wants to have some post or position of authority. And Prithu said at the time, I don't have this verified, but he said that Prabhupada had stated that Hansa Duda is praying for me to die while everyone else is praying for me to live. Something like that. So that was quite let's say, a revelation for people like me. I'm beginning to think, wait a minute, there's some problems here with these leaders. Prabhupada doesn't have full faith in them, and it's evident that they have some material leanings. Why would somebody be reading about Hitler unless he had some mundane ambition? He was ambitious. So I think this was a good lesson for people like me. We could see these leaders, they have problems. They're not pure. Now, one thing is Hansa Duda advertises, oh, I'm a senior devotee. I was one of the original devotees. Well, yeah, okay. So if you're one of the original devotees, that means Kirtanananda has problems. Ramachara has problems. Harikesh has problems. All these people have problems. So why would you say they're pure devotees? Why, in 1977, you're having all these problems with all these people, especially Bhagavan? Why would you say they're pure devotees? You're having problems with them. If you declare that they're pure devotees, you're just going to make the problems really bad for everyone in their situation. You're having a problem with somebody. Let's say you have a cranky neighbor who's shooting guns off in his backyard. You don't like this neighbor. Then all of a sudden one day you just say this neighbor is Jesus. What? How's that going to help the situation? It's going to make things worse. It's going to empower and enable that neighbor to create more dastardly behaviors because he's going to have a big title. Why would you give a big title to somebody that you thought was crazy or difficult or material or whatever it is? So Hansa Duda would confide in me at different times that he was having a big problem with this guy, that guy, and the other guy, and he didn't like this guy, that guy, and the other guy. So if he's making them pure devotees, it means Again, he's motivated. He has a reason for doing that. The reason is those guys are going to bring him into their club where they're all going to agree to declare that they're pure devotees. So he's going to make people that he already has said they're crazy, they're foolish, they're mundane, they're this, they're that, the other. They're Jesus now all of a sudden, so that Hansadutta can get a Jesus title from their group. That's all. So it was obviously a conspiracy to take people with known mundane qualifications and make them into successors of Prabhupada. And what does that say about your assessment of Prabhupada? If you're saying that mundane, foolish people, crazy people, difficult people are the successors to Prabhupada, that means you have no respect ultimately for Prabhupada. It's very simple. If I say that my dog is God's successor, well, how much respect do I have for God? It's just common sense. To declare people that you know are defective and say that they are equal to God and should be worshipped as equal to God means, where's your respect for God? It's just not there. There's no respect there. In other words, your motive, your personal motive, supersedes your respect for God and your relationship with God. So this, again, is proof of where these people are at, where they were coming from. They all knew that each other had problems, but they all agreed this guy's going to be worshipped as good as God, so that they could move forward with their plot, their conspiracy to declare foolish and fallen and mundane people as God's successor. So Hansadutta says that in 1978, him and the other GBC had secret meetings where they discussed this whole idea that they're going to become gurus, and they discussed how they were going to present this to the rank and file devotees of ISKCON. And Satsvarup made pretend he was a Prabhupada disciple, giving arguments against the guru appointment. So they honed down their arguments together for some time. And according to Hansadutta, Ramachar raised his hand and said, I'm just going to LA. I can start initiating people now, no problem. And Satsvarup stopped everybody and he said, no, we have to make sure that all of our arguments are together and we're all saying the same thing at the same time, because if we don't do that, this whole thing is going to fall apart. So they really sat down, they really got their arguments together, and they plotted and schemed this whole thing out very methodically. Now, after Hansadutta had been the guru for a couple of years in Berkeley, another problem started, that his temple and farm were raided by the police. The federal authorities came. They found stolen credit cards. They found illegal guns. There was an illegal gun business going on. All kinds of different criminal things were going on in Hansadutta's regime. And in fact, the police officer who doing the beat of the temple, his name was Joe Sanchez, he said that he got an award from the city of Berkeley for making 73 felony arrests in a year, and all of those arrests were made from the temple. So Hansadutta was encouraging criminals to come and join his program, and he advertised himself as the gangster prankster guru. So he kind of was gloating that he was some kind of a gangster and some kind of a criminal. And he was attracting criminals. People would get out of jail, or they were just criminals anyway, and they would go and join Hansadutta's program because they were attracted to criminal behavior and his criminal mood that was going on there in Berkeley. Now, Hansadutta was at the same time very attracted to Sridhar Maharaj, and Sridhar Maharaj was his biggest supporter, even up until the very end. Sridhar just kept telling him, yes, you have to be a guru. Yes, just go and sit in the guru seat. You have to be worshipped as the guru. Don't worry about it. So Hansadutta said this was the worst advice he got from anybody. He told Sridhar Maharaj he was engaged in illicit sex and taking intoxication and all kinds of problems. And he had big headaches, from taking karma and all this. And Sridhar just said, no problem, just go back and sit in the seat. And Hansadutta said this is the worst advice he ever got from anybody ever in his whole life. So Sridhar was like a corporate person. He just said you have to worship the corporation. It doesn't matter if the people in the corporation are corrupt or falling apart, falling down, whatever it is. You just have some figurehead in a seat, and then the followers will worship that figurehead. So I think he's more or less a person who worships institutions. You worship the institution. It doesn't matter if people are engaged in crimes, if the guru is falling down. You just keep that going on, which is unfortunately what happened in 1936. He started another institutional guru program. So anyways, I was a little surprised that people like Tripurari, Jagat Guru, and many others, Dear Krishna, and so on, they all ran off to Sridhar. Wait a minute, Sridhar is supporting this whole corporate guru program. Isn't that the antithesis of the Krishna conscious religion? We're supposed to worship a pure devotee. We're not supposed to worship an institution. So anyway, the GBC wanted and used Sridhar because they wanted his advice. And his advice was keep the corporate guru program going no matter what. So when Ramachar wanted to leave, Sridhar said no. When Tamal was in all kinds of trouble, Sridhar said no, he has to stay. So anyway, Hansa Duda and Tamal became very good friends because Tamal was on the outs with the GBC. He was saying he had the Guru Shakti and none of the other gurus did. So the other GBC were ganging up and saying, we can't have Tamal saying that he's the only guru in the group. And then Hansa Duda was in trouble with his bust from the police. So they became like a team. They were hanging out together all the time. They had a big meeting in Topanga where they admitted they were never appointed as gurus. They did that so that they could use that as leverage against the other GBC. You know, watch out. If you don't let us be gurus, we're going to kick the whole program down the highway here. We're going to expose that the whole thing is fraud. You won't be gurus. We won't be gurus. Nobody's going to be gurus. We'll just destroy the whole program. So the other GBC realized that's a big threat, and so they reinstated Hansa Duda and Tamal to some extent. So this was going on. There was a lot of politicking going on amongst their group. And later on, Hansa Duda sent a bunch of his people down to Los Angeles to protest that Sridhar Maharaj was being minimized by the GBC and Ramachar, and Ramachar is a big offender to Sridhar Maharaj. But that's because Sridhar Maharaj kept on supporting Hansa Duda no matter what. So I find it amazing that Hansa Duda could get 30, 40 people to go down, call the newspapers, make a press conference, and protest that Los Angeles is minimizing Sridhar, but we couldn't get 30, 40 together to protest the whole thing. Why didn't 30, 40 Prabhupada disciples get together and say, hey, we can't have deviants being worshipped in our religion. We just can't do that. There would just seem to be no interest or no enthusiasm for correcting and remedying the problems going on in the religion. Everyone just seemed to throw their hands up in the air and say, let's go smoke pot, let's go have some relationships group like Gopavindapal had, and let's just let ISKCON slide into the sewer. That's basically what happened. So anyway, Sridhar Maharaj, in I think 1980, something like that, he made some kind of a tape saying we need to keep Tamal and Hansa Duda, so he saved them, you know, and he was credited with saving ISKCON, and I said, he didn't save ISKCON, he just sent ISKCON to hell by keeping these guys in the guru pose. What do you mean he saved ISKCON? So the followers of Sridhar, even now, they say, oh, he saved ISKCON. He saved ISKCON by keeping bums in a Vyasa seat. How is that helping us? That's not helping at all. So it is amazing to me that people keep thinking that keeping this program going is what is saving and helping ISKCON. It is not. You cannot keep false gurus in a seat and expect a good outcome. There just isn't going to be any. So I was personally living north of San Francisco, several hours north, in a smaller town, and I noticed a Mercedes in town one day, and I said, I wonder if that's Hansa Duda's Mercedes. And sure enough, it was Hansa Duda. He came out with a couple of his followers, and he invited me over to meet with them. And so we went over there, and he said, Pranjan, I'm dying. I'm sleeping 23 hours a day. I'm taking Percodan. I'm drinking. I'm not going to live. And I want, before I leave, to establish that Prabhupada is the Acharya of ISKCON. Won't you come to Berkeley, live at the temple, and help me do that? So I said, okay, let's give it a try. I knew this was going to be a crazy ride because Hansa Duda was not sane very much at that point. But I thought, well, let's give it a try. We'll try to reestablish Prabhupada. If he wants to do that, let's see if we can do that. So I came down to Berkeley. Now, he didn't really tell his followers that I was right, that I had the right idea. But he did tell them, don't beat the crap out of this guy, Pranjan, because everybody else who disobeyed Hansa Duda or got into questioning Hansa Duda got beaten up or was kicked out and so on and so forth. So I got some kind of mercy, not a lot, but he didn't really back me up. But he did at least announce don't go after this guy, something like that. So I was there, and I began preaching. Prabhupada is the guru. These guys are not gurus. And by good fortune, I had a friend who got into Hansa Duda's safe, and he got the will, Prabhupada's will. He got the Topanga conversations where Hansa Duda admitted there was no guru appointment, and a few other documents which were very useful for me at the time. Simultaneously, I was in touch with Sulochan. Now, Sulochan, at first, he wrote to tell me, oh, there's no problem. Listen to this tape. Kirtanananda explains everything nicely. And Kirtananda, in his lecture, was saying that Jayatirtha is the Maya Jayatirtha. The Jayatirtha we see now is just the Maya Jayatirtha, so he's engaged in nonsense, but the real Jayatirtha is really engaged in Krishna service somewhere else. So we shouldn't worry, the Maya Jayatirtha is not the real Jayatirtha. And I said, what? So Kirtananda is comparing the Jayatirtha, with all of his nonsense behavior, to Sita. He said, this is just like Sita. There's the Maya Sita and the real Sita. And I said, what does some guy taking drugs and having sex with his followers have to do with Sita? I don't get it. So Sulochan, he wrote back to me and he says, yeah, you're right. This is crazy. This is offensive. But I'm kind of stuck here at New Vrindavan because my wife wants to be here. So he was kind of stuck there. But eventually he called me and he said, they stole my kids and I'm in all kinds of trouble with these people and they want to kill me and all kinds of things. So I'm going to come out there to Berkeley and we should work together. Let's take these guys down. Let's do something. So he got all fired up to come to Berkeley, and he did. So that made things worse for me with Hansa Duda people because Sulochan was very non-compromising and very heavy-duty with this whole program. So I kind of put myself into hot water by having Sulochan as my close associate in Berkeley at that time. But very fortunately, the police there liked me, and they liked Sulochan, and so the Hansa Duda people kind of backed off and didn't really give us too much trouble because they knew the police were friendly with us. Now, I do believe that our preaching was very effective because 1 week after we arrived at Berkeley, Hansa Duda was literally going crazy by the friction that we were creating because people were coming to him. Hansa Duda, Pranjan says this, that, and the other. What do you think? He was having a very hard time countering our propaganda, let's say. Our propaganda is, let's worship Prabhupada. So he went really crazy. He went out and shot at 4 occupied buildings with 4 guns. So he was shooting at buildings that were full of people. And he was arrested, and he had a bunch of guns in the car and some alcohol, open containers of alcohol. Now, any ordinary person in that situation would have been arrested and put in jail for a long time. But Hansa Duda immediately started spending unlimited amounts of money on lawyers. He got the best lawyer in San Francisco to defend him, keep him out of jail. So just imagine the temple doesn't have a lot of money already. There's a lot of repairs that need to be done on the temple, stuff like that. But there's tons and tons and tons of money to hire lawyers for Hansa Duda to defend him from shooting at occupied buildings. So it never ends with these people. They always have tons, unlimited amounts of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, whatever it takes for their lawyers. Meanwhile, there's not enough money for the Gurukula children who complain they're being fed rotten oatmeal. So this is a big problem. All the funding keeps going to these guys for all kinds of crazy projects. We're hiring a big lawyer to defend a guy for doing nonsense things. And then, of course, Hansa Duda was spending a lot of money on his drug rehab program. So he's getting a drug rehab at great expense. It's costing thousands of dollars every week for the drug rehab. It's costing thousands of dollars every week for the lawyer. Where's the money for the devotees, the citizens? Nobody knows. It's gone. It's being siphoned off into these guys' crazy programs. And where's the GBC? Where's the governing body commission of ISKCON when all this stuff is going on? How are they managing the situation? They aren't. They're not even there. They don't care. They're not lifting a finger to fix this situation. But there is no drug rehab. If you're being a crazy guru, you're going to have headaches. You're going to have problems, and you're going to take drugs and all that stuff, because it's not normal to be a bogus guru, and your body's telling you and your mind is telling you don't do this, so people have to take drugs. Satsvarup was doing a similar thing. He was taking psychotropic drugs, at least according to his secretary who told me that. So they're taking drugs and they're hiring lawyers and all these kind of things are going on. And what is the point? Just to save some foolish person from going to prison who thinks he's as good as God. And he's clearly not. Now, another thing that happened, Hansa Duda got off of a plane and he got handcuffed as soon as he got off the plane. All the devotees were out there chanting to him, and he gets cuffed by the police because he was causing a big scene in the airplane. And he was drunk, evidently, on the airplane. And so he was starting a fight with the stewardesses and the attendants on the plane. Again, he's arrested and, everybody just, we have to rescue Hansa Duda. He's in trouble with the law. Poor Guru Maharaj is being picked on by the evil demon people of the world. So the more that Hansa Duda got into trouble, the more his followers thought he's just being persecuted. He's like Jesus. He's a martyr. He's everybody's after him. Everybody's against him because he's so pure. He's so wonderful. So kind of fanatical atmosphere was going on. But Hansa Duda himself started to realize the writing's on the wall. He can't do this forever. So the story I heard anyway was that there was a rumor that one of his married disciples had said she was going to get an inheritance. And so Hansa Duda ordered this woman to divorce her husband and marry him. And evidently the plan was to get this inheritance. So it's amazing. But the husband later told me he knew that Hansa Duda had just manipulated him out of the marriage to get his hands on his wife. So this was very, very incredible. How could this go on? And the disciples of Hansa Duda didn't quite get it. They didn't understand. This is a major problem. We can't allow this kind of thing to go on. But even after that, many of his disciples still thought he's wonderful. He's doing a great thing. He's going to now have a Guru Mata and all the rest of it. They didn't take into consideration he had just broken up a marriage in order to get his hands on this woman. Now there's another story, and I can't verify this story or validate this story, but a woman, Hansa Duda disciple, said she had told the Hansa Duda people that she was going to inherit her mother's house when the mother died, and the mother was mysteriously stabbed to death, and the police never really figured out what happened to the woman. The mother died. And as soon as the mother died, a bunch of the Hansa Duda people said, so when are you going to turn over your inherited house to us and give it to Hansa Duda? So she suspected that some of Hansa Duda's people had something to do with their mother's disappearance. Now, other people disappeared as well. The police would always come to me and say, we're looking for this guy, Bhakti Joe, Bhakti Jack, this guy, the other guy. Do you know where these people are? Because they were last seen at Krishna communities and they were never seen again anywhere at all. So the police suspected that some really evil thing was going on with these people. Now, Hansa Duda had made one guy named Jiva into a sannyasi, and there was a famous story that Hansa Duda put a gun at Jiva's head and all this kind of stuff because Jiva was having sex with a bunch of the women in Berkeley temple. So Hansa Duda threatened him, supposedly. And later, Jiva was found with 5 shots through his chest. He was in a ditch, killed, and again, no one knows what happened there. But my preaching was working out really good. I convinced a whole bunch of Hansa Duda people to worship Prabhupada, and we took away most of his pictures out of the temple. I personally took some down and threw them into the dumpster myself. So we gradually were de-Hansa Dudaizing the temple and putting more and more emphasis on Prabhupada and stuff like that. So Hansa Duda's Vyasa-san was gone and all kinds of things. So good things were starting to happen, and it was just too much for Hansa Duda. He realized, wow, Prabhupada is going to become the guru of this temple, and my followers will worship Prabhupada. And he just couldn't stand it. He just found that intolerable because his little motivated nature was still in the background there. I still need to be the guru. I still need to be the authority and this type thing. So he made a big announcement. Kirtanananda is the only pure devotee on the planet. Yes, we need to have everyone go to New Vrindavan. We're going to make a big caravan. And Hansa Duda collected up all kinds of people, most of the people from the temple, and a whole bunch of vehicles and books and just everything that wasn't nailed down. They loaded it all up and drove everybody off to New Vrindavan except for a small skeleton crew. So I think Hansa Duda did that on purpose, because what he was really saying is, if people aren't going to worship me, then there won't be any worship going on here at all. Let's screw the temple over and destroy the temple, scorched earth, just burn everything to the ground. So the collectors were gone, the money went down. Everything was just in a state of total chaos, because that's what Hansa Duda wanted. He wanted to teach everybody a lesson. You don't worship me, you will be punished. But who is he punishing? He's punishing Krishna, because Krishna is the deity of the temple. The only person getting punished here is Krishna. Krishna doesn't have any servants. Krishna doesn't have any money. Krishna doesn't have people making garlands, making a deity program for him. He's punishing Krishna. Krishna has to suffer if I'm not being worshipped. What is that? What kind of program is that? So a lot of us, we're just scratching our head. What? Krishna has to suffer because Hansa Duda is not getting his way here? He's no longer going to be worshipped by everybody here. Prabhupada is going to be worshipped instead. And he's so envious that Prabhupada will be worshipped here. He has to destroy the whole thing. And he nearly did. He nearly destroyed this temple. And ever since then, this temple's had one big problem after the next, because there's just not enough manpower and so many other problems that Hansa Duda created. He just left a total chaotic state. So people say I should give Hansa Duda the benefit of the doubt. Well, wait a minute. He went to New Vrindavan. As soon as he went to New Vrindavan, Sulochan was murdered, because Hansa Duda was saying Sulochan is a demon and stuff like that. He helped Kirtanananda. And so Hansa Duda sent some gundas back from New Vrindavan to get me. And they were chasing me down the street. But I was under undercover surveillance at the time. I didn't even realize it, but the police were following me around because they feared for my life. They thought Hansa Duda's people would try to kill me. And they were right. They were chasing me down the street. So the police in the undercover car, they said, everybody freeze. They had a big loudspeaker in the car. And they put the handcuffs on these guys and basically saved my life. I could have been killed, or probably would have been killed. Because, again, Hansa Duda found it intolerable that we're going to be worshiping Prabhupada here. But to give Hansa Duda at least some credit, later on I was in Los Angeles helping form a steering committee to get a lawsuit together for the original books, and Hansa Duda came down, and we had meetings at Narayan's house, and he came, and he volunteered to help, and he did help, and without his help, we wouldn't have been able to put together this BBT lawsuit. So we got some rights to print original books. At least we were able to recover something out of this whole mess using Hansa Duda's assistance, because he was at one time a BBT trustee. But as usual, after the lawsuit had been finished, he sued his own lawyer. He made a lawsuit against his own lawyer and tried to create all kinds of chaos with the settlement. And supposedly the settlement money was spent by Hansa Duda on lawyers and all kinds of things. Again, he just can't contain himself. As soon as he has a little control over a little teeny thing, it just is too much for him to handle. So he just spins out of control. But later on, I talked to Hansa Duda about the poison issue. And he seemed to agree. He said, yeah, it is strange that Prabhupada would say someone's giving me poison. But then he said, yeah, but I was in the room and I didn't really notice anything wrong. Well, Hansa Duda, you didn't notice anything was wrong with anything the whole time. Excuse me. You didn't notice that Kirtanananda had a big criminal operation going, and you sent everybody over there saying he's a pure devotee. So what you notice and don't notice is not really very significant, is it? But he really can't refute the evidence. Even when we show him all this evidence, he can't refute it. He can't say it's wrong or it didn't happen or, anything else. But we've had the same problem with Gargamuni, Brahmananda, people like that. Well, we were there. We know nothing. Well, yeah, but I know people who were there, and they do know that something wrong happened. I know people who were there, and they said that they knew that Prabhupada was being poisoned at the time. So it depends on who you are and what you saw and what you heard at the time and what you wanted to hear and what you wanted to see. A lot of these people just didn't want to see what was really coming down the pipeline here. And Hansa Duda is one of those people. He didn't want to see what was really happening because how could he be part of their club? If he came out and said they're a vicious club and they're against Prabhupada, then how would he be a member? So he's had to unfortunately defend that group, never mind whatever they do. But this takes me back to Hansa Duda knew that Kirtananda had problems way back in the day. Why would he all of a sudden send everybody from Berkeley to there, knowing that Kirtananda has all these problems? And by that time, his problems were very clearly, heavily manifesting. So Hansa Duda knew there was problems. He didn't care. He just wanted to cheat people and send them off to another crazy thing. After he sent everybody to Sridhar Maharaj, now he wants to send everybody to Kirtananda Maharaj. So we should go to everywhere except Prabhupada. We should not go to Prabhupada. That's not good. So after that, some years after all that, we did get him to write a paper. And in that paper, he admits that Prabhupada had only appointed the GBC, the Governing Body Commission, as Ritviks, or as priests, and none of them had been appointed as gurus. So it was helpful to some extent. He did try to undo at least some of the damage he had created. But unfortunately, there's so much negative that Hansa Duda had created. There was so much bad newspaper publicity, shooting occupied buildings. He got arrested with a machine gun. It was in the newspapers that he was the machine gun Swami. Then, of course, Sulochan's murder. So many things were going on that his program was connected to. So this was in all the newspapers all over the Bay Area for such a long time. It's just very hard to recover from something like that. It looks like he did everything he humanly could to destroy the name of Prabhupada and Krishna. I mean, what more could he do? He just tried to make Krishna and Prabhupada out to be horrible, evil people who have horrible, evil followers. And not only that, but he's the successor to Krishna. So criminals and sexual predators and deviants and wife stealers and all this stuff are Krishna's successors. That's what Hansa Duda was trying to promote. And of course, Krishna didn't not allow that to happen, fortunately for us. And of course, Krishna, with a little bit of help from me and Sulochan, helped to put a crimp on this whole program. We exposed this program as fraudulent, as one big, giant, big lie. But let's not forget that the Hitler program did have a slogan, "Tell a lie so big no one would doubt that it's a lie." And Hansa Duda used to shout that in the temple. Tell a lie so big no one would doubt it. So he knew the whole thing was a lie from top to bottom, from square one, day one, square one. He just thought he was going to be able to cheat Krishna. No one can cheat Krishna, especially on this level, on this scale. It's just not going to happen. It didn't happen in the Gaudiya Math. It's not going to happen in ISKCON. It's not going to happen anywhere. You cannot come out and claim that you're the successor to God indefinitely without some kind of a pushback or some kind of expose, because God is not happy with these activities. Now, unfortunately, the Shastra says that the people who imitate the Acharyas have to go to the lowest regions of the universe. That's not what I say. That is what Shastra says. And I really would not look forward to a future being one of these people. And Sulochan used to say, I wouldn't trade 10 trillion years of my bad karma for 1 minute of their bad karma. I would not want to experience 1 minute of what they're going to have to experience. Now, there are friends of Hansa Duda who sometimes criticize me, even now. They say, oh, you are just too heavy with Hansa Duda. He was very sincere. He did more service than you will ever do, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But one time, a husband of a woman that Hansa Duda was having sex with, he was having sex with this guy's wife, he was going to go and blow off Hansa Duda's head. He had a shotgun. And he told me and one other person, I'm going. I'm driving up to the farm right now, and I'm going to blow off Hansa Duda's head. That's what he told me. And he would have. I mean, he was very angry, very agitated man. In any case, he would have driven to the farm with the shotgun and something bad would have happened. It would not have ended well, let's just say. So I spent a lot of time, like over an hour, talking to this guy to convince him not to do that. I said, you're going to go to jail and there's going to be bad newspaper publicity and Hansa Duda is going to be dead. What will it solve? It's not going to actually fix the problem. So in other words, I saved Hansa Duda's life. It's very clear, very evident. I saved his life. So people can say I like him or I didn't like him or whatever they want to say, but no one can argue that he wouldn't be walking on the planet probably today if it wasn't for me saving him from getting his head blown off. And believe me, this can happen. I mean, look what happened to Jayatirtha. So yes, when gurus have sex with the wives of followers, it can end badly. But Hansa Duda lost everything. He lost moral sense, common sense, every kind of sense, because just like the Shastra says, when a person insults great souls, he loses his longevity, he loses his opulence, he loses his religious bearings, he loses everything. So for Hansa Duda to say that his homosexual and sexual predator and drug addict friends are equal to Krishna, that's very offensive, and he lost all of his brains because of this offense. That's clearly what happened. And he's partially recovered some of his brains to some extent, maybe, but he's got a long way to go to recover from this whole situation. I hope this helps people. Hari Bol.